If you've been in XRP for any amount of time, you've probably had this thought at least once. I'm holding, but am I actually doing anything? Because holding is one thing, sitting through cycles, watching the charts, believing in the long-term narrative. But markets don't just reward patience, they reward positioning. And positioning isn't always the same thing as simply holding. Now, before we dive into today's XRP data, because what I'm about to show you genuinely made me stop for a second, I want to address something that's quietly happening across this market. A lot of people right now are just holding spot. And if you've been holding through volatility, through fear spikes, through ETF outflows, through macro uncertainty, your portfolio might not feel amazing. But here's the reality. Even in choppy, uncertain markets, there are trading opportunities. Volatility doesn't disappear because price is sideways, it rotates. And that's exactly why I personally use Blowfin. Blowfin is today's video sponsor. I know the markets have been tough, and if you're holding spot, your bags might well be down. But if you're actively trading, there have been some real opportunities in both directions. Blowfin gives you low trading fees, deep liquidity, strong security, and clean execution, which matters far more than people realise when you're managing risk properly. And they've just launched a brand new community campaign specifically for us. That means exclusive rewards, trading bonuses, and incentives for our community if you want to get involved. Because whether you're long-term bullish on XRP or not, short-term volatility is where active traders make money. If you're interested in learning how to engage with the market instead of just watching it, I'll leave the details in the description below. And if you want to know the exact strategies we use in the Crypto Wolfpack to make money in both the bull market and the bear market, we've made a completely free course for you. It's called the Crypto Liftoff course, and the link is in the description. Now, let's talk about something that quietly shifted this week. Because right now, you only need around 2,200 XRP to be in the top 10% of wallets globally. Top 10%. Not 20,000 XRP, not whale territory, just over 2,000. And when I saw that number, I didn't think moon, I thought structure. Because wallet distribution doesn't tell you what price will do. It tells you how supply is positioned. And supply positioning is where cycles are born. According to recent data, roughly 2,232 XRP now places a wallet inside the top 10% globally. The threshold to enter the top 5% has reportedly dropped as well, from over 8,000 XRP previously to somewhere closer to the 7,700 range. That means the bar to be considered a relatively large holder has come down. And when thresholds compress like that, something is shifting. Now, let's slow this down. If the amount required to enter the top 10% decreases, one of a few things is happening. Either larger wallets are reducing balances, or large holders are spreading funds across multiple addresses, or small wallets are accumulating and increasing total address count, flattening the curve, or some combination of all three. But here's what matters. Distribution is changing quietly, and structural changes usually happen long before narrative changes. While everyone debates price predictions, supply is moving underneath the surface. Now let's zoom out for context. The broader crypto market has recently seen periods of extreme fear. Liquidations have spiked, we've seen ETF flows fluctuate, some days strong inflows, other days sharp outflows during macro uncertainty. Liquidity isn't stable. Confidence isn't stable. But distribution doesn't move emotionally like price does. It shifts slowly, deliberately. And that is why I pay attention to it. Because XRP is not just another speculative token. It has one of the longest standing retail communities in crypto. Many holders have been holding for years, some over a decade. Through court cases, through regulatory uncertainty, through narrative fatigue. And fatigue changes behaviour. Weak hands leave over time. What remains is either conviction or apathy, and both alter supply dynamics. So if 2,200 XRP now places someone in the top 10%, that tells us the distribution curve has flattened slightly, but it doesn't tell us whether that flattening is complete. And that's the key difference. Now let's connect something bigger. Governments globally are tightening digital asset regulation. Stablecoin frameworks are being debated. Market structure bills are being discussed. Central banks continue exploring digital currencies. At the same time, institutional rails into crypto have expanded significantly over the past year. Bitcoin's ETFs changed the access point. Investment products have normalised digital assets within traditional finance structures. Capital can now enter and exit more efficiently than ever before. So ask yourself this. If regulatory clarity improves over the next 12 to 18 months and institutional access expands further, which assets are structurally positioned to benefit? That's not a prediction. It's a positioning question. XRP has always sat in that interesting space between retail conviction and infrastructure narrative. And if clarity increases, that narrative tension could resolve structurally rather than emotionally. But here's where people often misunderstand wallet data. Wallet count is not the same as unique individuals. One entity can control dozens or hundreds of addresses. Exchanges hold large balances across operational wallets. Custodians segment holdings for security. So when we say top 10% of wallets, we're talking about address distribution, not human distribution. That distinction matters, but psychologically it still plays a role. When retail holders see that 2,200 XRP places them in the top 10%, it creates a sense of attainable positioning. And markets move when positioning feels attainable. Participation increases, liquidity improves, volatility expands. And volatility creates opportunity. Which brings us back to the beginning. Holding is one strategy, trading is another. Positioning is about understanding both, because while distribution quietly evolves, short-term volatility continues to offer opportunities for those actively engaged. That's why I believe it's important to separate long-term conviction from short-term strategy. You can believe in the long-term structure of XRP and still actively trade volatility. You can hold spot and hedge risk. You can accumulate slowly and still recognise when momentum shifts. Markets are not binary, and the most resilient participants are adaptable. Now, let's quickly talk about decoupling. Some analysts suggest XRP could decouple from Bitcoin in a future cycle. Historically, that's been rare. Bitcoin dominance tends to influence altcoins significantly. Liquidity cycles still revolve around BTC as the macro driver. So for XRP to meaningfully decouple, one of three things would likely need to occur. Regulatory clarity that distinctly benefits XRP's classification. Institutional adoption tied specifically to its infrastructure narrative. Or macro liquidity divergence where capital rotates uniquely into alternative rails. Possible? Yes. Guaranteed? No. But again, distribution shifts often prepare the ground before narrative shifts occur. If supply becomes more evenly distributed among mid-term holders rather than concentrated at the extreme top, upside moves, if they happen, can behave differently. Not because price is predicted, but because supply dynamics influence volatility. And volatility is the engine of cycles. Now let me say this clearly. 2,200 XRP is not a magic number. It does not guarantee anything. It does not mean early. It does not mean late. It simply tells us that supply structure is evolving. And I'm far more interested in structural evolution than emotional predictions. Because emotional predictions are loud, structural changes are quiet. And quiet shifts are often where the real story lives. Before we close, I want to remind you of something. Many retail traders feel alone, watching headlines, watching red candles, trying to interpret the noise. That's exactly why we set up the Crypto Wolf Pack. It's a place where normal people can connect, share experiences, read charts together, discuss macro events, access trading signals, and join daily live streams. So remember, the link for the Crypto Wolf Pack and the free trading course that we've made is in the description of this video. Because whether XRP needs 2,200 or 20,000 to hit a percentile doesn't matter if you don't have a strategy and a community around you. Position sizing matters, risk management matters, liquidity awareness matters. So I'll leave you with this. Instead of asking when XRP will rocket, maybe we could start asking, how is supply positioning changing while nobody is paying attention? Because that's usually where cycles begin. If you found this useful, hit like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments. Do you think this distribution shift represents quiet accumulation? Or is it just reshuffling behind the scenes? I read all of your comments, and I genuinely value the conversations we have here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.